Hello everybody and welcome to this review of Fedora 21. So, Fedora has been out for just over a month now, the 21 version, and it now comes in three different flavours. So we have the Workstation version, which is the one that I'll be testing today, which is, as it says here, polished, easy to use operating system for laptop and desktop computers, and it's got things for developers and makers of all kinds. I will say here, while it looks there like it's meant for developers, yes, they can use it. However, I'm planning on using it as my daily driver from now on, and I think it's a great release. I've not been into Fedora in the past. I've usually stuck with Ubuntu derivatives, but this has run solidly, and there's only a few little bits of software, and you can uninstall them if you don't want them. I mean, I'm not a developer, so I don't need them, so I've just removed them from my install. There's also a server version, which is pretty straightforward, and a cloud version for use in cloud environments, but I'm not going to need either of those, so I'll be showing the Workstation version today. And this is it. So this is a fresh install here. So I've just logged in and we have the welcome screen to double check our language. So next, double check the keyboard layout. Next, I like this part here. We can connect our online accounts. Now I do have an own cloud account. I'm not going to set it up on here. However, it has been running on my laptop, connected to the server, absolutely no problem. I can see my photos in Gnome Photos. I can see my calendars and Evolution. It works really well. So really liking that. We've got Windows Live and we've also got Facebook, which I haven't tried either of those, but I have tried Google and OwnCloud and it's working very well. I'm going to skip that for here though. You can see we're all set, start using Fedora. So we get a nice getting started menu, which is nice because for a lot of people the Gnome interface will be new and very different, so I'm going to skip that though. And this is it. So this is Gnome 3.14, which is the latest version of Gnome, released back in late 2014. And one way to easily check that it's 3.14, if we click here we should get an animation of all the applications coming on, which you don't get in 3.12. So that's not the only difference, but that is one easy way to tell which version you're running. So this is the installed software, and you can see there really isn't much on here. We've got Gnome boxes, which is very good. I haven't seen that come as standard in the Ubuntu release of Gnome. We've also got the weather application here. A lot of the other Gnome software hasn't been installed, but you can easily install that from the Gnome Software Center, which I will show you quickly. So this is it. It looks a little bit like the Ubuntu Software Center, but it's a lot faster, a lot snappier. So we have our picks, we have some ratings there, which is quite nice. We can click on something, go straight to it. We can install it if we want to. Really nice and easy. You can also do your updates from here, which is really nice, and you can view your installed applications. Now, one thing that people often like about Gnome, which I haven't been able to do with the Ubuntu Gnome edition, which I find really annoying, is you can see you can group things into folders. So we have utilities folder here with everything you'd need in there. Okay, we have our sundries folder. Unfortunately, there's no easy way to make a folder. You can't just drag one thing on top of another and expect it to make a new folder a la iOS and Android. It doesn't work quite like that. What you do is you go into your software and you click this. You click installed and you click this little tick at the top, and then you can select any of these things. So I could have boxes, cheese, clocks, Dev Assistant, documents, and Evolution. And I could add them to a folder, and I can say, right, I want to have a new folder, and I want to call it stuff. So stuff. There we go. And add. There we go. We have a folder called stuff. Add. And now, if I come out of here and I go back into my activities window, look at my software, I now have should have a stuff folder. There we go. Click on there. And there's all my software that's in that stuff folder. Again, if I want to move things out of the stuff folder, go into Gnome Software, click on Installed, click the little tick box, and I should be able to remove things from stuff. So it says that's in stuff, stuff, and stuff. Remove from folder. Done. Now if I come out of there, back into here, my stuff folder has gone. Okay, so that's nice and easy. It helps you group things together, so I quite like that. Right, well, there's quite a lot of software that's not included in here, and you can't get it in the software center either. So, for example, something like VLC, no application found, okay, which is quite annoying because obviously that's used quite a bit by people. So how do we get it? Well, in order to do that, you have to install something called the RPM Fusion repository. Now, that can be quite annoying to actually do. However, there are tools out there that will make it a nice simple process, and one such tool is something called Fedora, and this is the one that I prefer. I've tried a few of them. Fedora seems to give me more options than others. One thing that this will allow you to do is improve these horrible, ugly fonts that you can see all over here. So that's mainly because Fedora are trying to meet with licensing conditions so that they can be free software, free as in open source, and they don't have any proprietary software running in here. However, I really want the proprietary software, so all I have to do, go to the Fedora website, copy this. Be very careful because I don't recommend doing this normally. This will automatically put you into a root environment and then it will download and install. I don't know why they do it this way, but they do. So if we go to a terminal, which is, it's just terminal, it's easier, and we just paste that line in, hit enter, put the password in, and that will download and install. Should be pretty quick. I'm going to pause the video and I'll resume once that has finished installing. Okay, so that's done. So we can click activities here, go to Fedora, put our little password in, and what we get is a nice simple little GUI where we can just click on and click off things that we do want installed and things that we don't want installed, that often come installed with lots of other distributions, not so with Fedora, but that's mainly so that Fedora can ship as a free open source distribution with no proprietary code in it, which, you know, add in one little program to get it all working, in my opinion, to get a nice stable release that has all the software I want. I don't mind doing it. One big thing then is in tweaks and tasks, click select, and it's the RPM Fusion repository. That's the big one that you want to install. That gets you access to quite a lot of extra software, including things like VLC and quite a lot of other stuff that most distributions would actually ship with. Okay, I can understand why Fedora doesn't. It's one little click and you've now got it. Also, I would think enable DVD playback, improve the font rendering, because by default things in Firefox are pretty ugly, so that does quite a nice job of getting it looking really good. I've installed most of these actually to get a nice stable system, including setting SE Linux to permissive mode, just because SE Linux tends to set labels onto things so that it can make sure that, you know, permissions are right across the machine, things like that. Well, if you start playing around with your machine a little bit, you just get error after error after error, even though it's not a proper error. It's just an error in how that how SE Linux is handling the machine. So rather than turn it off, because if you turn it off and then in the future decide to turn it back on again, you can get horrendous errors that can completely balk it. So setting it to permissive mode means, okay, if there's an error, just ignore it, make a log of it so that I can check it in the future if I really want to, and then you can turn it back on again without having major issues. Okay, so I'm not going to show you anything else there. I've already configured the RPM Fusion repository, so if I go back here and close, annoyingly you can't actually access the RPM Fusion repository software in Gnome software because it doesn't use PackageKit. So in order to do it, you have to do it from a terminal. Okay, so if we load up a terminal and if we go to sudo yum something like VLC, which we know wasn't there before, password in, and it'll pretty quickly find, there we go, found the package, 24 megs. I'm not going to install it for now. You can see that that does work. One thing I would say is good to install is sudo yum install yumx. Now yumx is yum extender. It's a little bit like Synaptic, and a tiny bit like that. It lets you view what's in the repositories. So yes, I am going to install that. Let's review what's in the repositories, including the RPM Fusion repository, so you can actually see all the software and read the changelogs and things like that. So it's completed. Let's have a quick look. So in here, if we type in yum extender password, so it's a nice graphical user interface for yum. Okay, so now if I look for VLC, I can see VLC, cross-platform open source media player, and it's in the RPM Fusion repository. And I can actually configure from this piece of software which repositories I do want to use and which ones I don't want to use. So that's a really good way of seeing what's in the RPM Fusion repository. You can turn everything off apart from that and then see what you've got. So nice bit of software there. It is a shame that it doesn't use the Gnome software. I think the Gnome developers are looking at ways that extra things could be added to Gnome software that might come into play in Gnome 3.16, but for now that's not going to be happening. Okay, so other things that we could really do with on this system. One is Gnome Tweak, which doesn't come as default. It doesn't come as default on a lot of systems, and I think Gnome is almost unusable without it. So as you can see here, we'll go into the Software Center, just show you quickly. VLC not there, so you do have to use yum. Okay, so Gnome Tweak, Gnome Tweak tool, would go into the utilities folder once it was installed. So we click install. It's now installing it. It will work through here and just does it. You'll notice it hasn't asked me for a password, and that's because during installation I set myself up as an admin user on this account, and for the Software Center you don't need your passwords for it if you've done that. If you haven't set yourself up as an admin, you will need to be putting passwords in if you're on someone else's account. Okay, I quite like that because, to be honest, there's nothing in Software Center that's really going to completely knacker my system. Anything that could do that is actually blocked from Software Center, and it's in yum, and you need a password to run yum, so not really bothered about that. Okay, so that's installed. If we go to Tweak, okay, this piece of software honestly for me makes Gnome actually usable. So for one, I often use the dark theme. A lot of the dark theme won't show until you've logged off and logged on again. Some things will work, so if we look at the file browser now, it comes up as the dark theme, which I prefer. I usually install different window manager, different GTK version, different icons. I haven't done that in this quick review, but I'll do another video that shows you how to set it up the way that I would do it. Not that you have to do that, but just how to install different things, make it a bit easier. Whether or not you want your icons to be on the desktop, I quite like a clean desktop, so I'm going to have that off. Extensions, now these are what make Gnome work for me. I have to have quite a few of them installed to make it how I want it. They do work. I haven't had any break on me yet in Gnome 3.14 and Fedora, so quite liking it. The only one turned on by default is the one that controls this logo down here, so turn that off, logo disappears, turn it back on. So basically you get the Fedora logo on any wallpaper that you have installed. So there's a few default ones in there. Applications menu, which means when you click applications now you get menu. Okay, but you can do this on any GNOME 3.14 installation. This isn't limited to just Fedora, but everything does seem to work really well in Fedora, so quite liking that. I usually configure my top bar to show the date as well. And that's about it, but that is a fantastic piece of software to use. Again, you can get it on any GNOME release. In my opinion, it should come as default, so you can set things up the way you want them. But it's not exactly difficult to get it running, especially with the Software Center. Nice and quick and easy. Okay, so all in all, pretty good stable system. I'll just quickly show you what some of the backgrounds are, although most of them are just stock GNOME ones, not really limited to Fedora. The Clouds one seems to be a Fedora one, but all of these, or most of these, I've seen in Ubuntu GNOME, OpenSUSE, things like that. So there's nothing really different in there. Obviously you can use your pictures folder if you've got any pictures in there, and plain colours. Same goes for the lock screen. Pretty much of a muchness really. One last thing that I will show that's quite good about Fedora and where they're leading, and the fact that they are cutting edge here. If I just quickly log out of the system but keep the recording going, if I just click myself, clicking on this gear down here, we can actually run Gnome Classic, and also we could try Gnome on Wayland. Now I haven't tried that yet. I might have a little play with it over the coming weeks. It's, you know, Wayland's nowhere near being finished at the moment, but it's nice to have a play and see what things are going to be looking like. I've heard that there might be some issues with trackpads on laptops and things like that, which is why I haven't got it running on my laptop yet. But I might have a little play with it and see. It's good to finally get to have a good play with Wayland and see the state of things as they are at the moment. So there you go. That's my quick review of, well, it was supposed to be quick. It's turned out to be quite a long video actually, of Fedora 21 Workstation. I really like this distribution. I am going to be switching my computers over to it. I will be making some more videos on how to make Fedora 21 look better and run a bit better and a bit smoother as your daily driver once you've installed some of the extra software from RPM Fusion and other places. So stay tuned for that. I'll get onto that as quick as I can. Thanks for watching. See you later.